Hello and welcome back to my channel. For those that are new here, my name is Elenia and this is Soft Skill Atelier, where I teach you all the skills you need to bring your fashion ideas to life. I am finally back with another upcycling project and I'm so excited to show you what I made. I came across this idea on a recent photo shoot I was working on and I couldn't get it out of my head, and that's why I'm gonna show you how it's done so you can also do it by yourself. It is a upcycled sportswear jacket that I have transformed into a customized corset top. I love this combination of sportswear and corsets, and I'm so excited to show you how it's done so you can do your own version. So I don't want to let you wait any longer. That's why we're going to get straight into it by looking at all the tools and materials we need to make this project. So let's do it.
To make this project, we need pins, sewing thread, copy paper and a tracing wheel, corset boning, a loop band, ribbon, bias tape, Seamripper, fabric scissors, fabric marker. We are going to work with this beautiful Bordeaux Adidas jacket. The first thing that needs to be done is removing the zipper and the bottom rib hem with a seam ripper. Make sure the zipper does not get damaged so that it can be used later again. As soon as the zipper and the hem piece is removed, I put it on the jacket and close it in the front with some pins. Now I start by shaping the jacket to be closer to my body. I start by pinching the fabric in the middle of the highest bust point all the way down to the hemline so that it gets form-fitted to my body. I pin the line straight down, always making sure the jacket is now way more fitted and hugs my body. As soon as I like the shape and the fit, I take a chalk to mark where I want my cup seam to run through. I want the cups to be a bit more loose than the bra cups to still be able to wear something underneath. After I'm done with drawing the cup line, I take off the jacket again and put it flat onto the table. Note that I only did one side and not both. I want them to be exactly the same, that's why I decide the shape on one side and then transfer the exact pattern to the other side. I retrace the lines I have marked while wearing the jacket and make them more visible and smooth. Then I added 1 cm seam allowance below the bust line. Moving on to the next task, and that is opening the side seams, all the way up from the hemline to the point where the mark of your bust line reaches the side seam. There is an easy trick in how to open overlock seams, and that is the following. First, you have to cut the crown of the seam, meaning the threads that go around the edge of the fabric. Then take the seam ripper and pull out the 2 threads that run along parallel to the edge. After this, you're just left with the loose bits of the threads that are still sticking in the fabric that you can easily remove by picking them out. Next, I move on with the bust dart. I have marked the highest point of the dart before. I connect that point with the point where the dart hits the bust line. After I marked both sides of the dart, I remove the pins and lay everything flat on the table. Now I need to make sure that I have the same lines mirrored on the other side too. Therefore, I pin the 2 sides perfectly on top of each other so that they are absolutely identical. The pocket zipper are a good indication on whether or not the pieces are actually laying on top of each other. As soon as I have secured everything, I take a copy paper that is coated with a layer of fabric chalk and place it underneath my prepped piece, chalk side facing upside. Now I take the tracing wheel and trace the lines that I have marked before. I apply quite a bit of pressure to make sure the lines are getting properly traced. Now the time has come where I need a bit of courage. I actually need to cut apart the front piece along the seam allowance line I have marked. I add some more pins at the dart and cut the pieces apart. Caution, do not cut the dart, I only cut along the bust line. After cutting, I need to trace the dart legs also to the inside of the fabric so I can pin the lines together to create the dart. Then I carefully pin the dart leg together, always making sure the two legs line up with each other. Then I finally do my first sewing for this project, and that is closing the two bust darts with a straight stitch. Moving along with a fitting to see how the bust dart is coming together. I feel the bust line is a bit too low and the cups will get a tiny bit too big. So I fold up the cups a bit on the sides so the shape is more to my liking. I trace the new bust line on one side and finish the fitting on my body. I continue the fitting on a mannequin. The mannequin is way slimmer than my figure, but it helps me to not needing to pin on my own body, but to work on a body double. The goal now is to reattach the bottom front part. Ideally, the front runs down straight and lines up with the upper part, and the rest should be pinned together in a way that there are no folds in any of the two parts. I end up with too much fabric in the bottom part. Because of the bust dart, the upper piece has gotten more narrow. The excess fabric will end up in the side seam. I mark the line where the two pieces meet so that I know later where to sew. I also mark the point where the dart will hit the lower part and where the upper piece will end on the sides. Then I remove all the pins and take the jacket off the mannequin. Now I do a bit of mind acrobatics because I need to add the seam allowance to the lower part, but at the same time also subtract the seam allowance from the upper part that was on the cup line added. So I need to add 2 centimeters to the line that I have just marked on the mannequin, and that will look something like that. Then I cut away the excess fabric. I also make sure that the other side has the exact same shape and that the dart point is properly marked and secured with a micro cut so I still know where it is even when the chalk mark disappeared. Now it's time to properly sew the front parts together again. I make sure I use a lot of pins because I will sew the two curves together. And that is a bit more challenging than sewing a straight seam, so it's always good to make sure the pieces won't shift while sewing. I sew the bust seam together and finish it off with an extra top stitch on the lower part to get the seam allowance in place and to accentuate the bust line. As soon as I have sewn together the front pieces, I move on by closing the side seams again. Remember, I have some excess fabric on the lower part of the front and that needs to be taken into consideration while pinning the sides together. I am making sure that by the end of the front hem, the front and the back side edge are meeting. Additionally, the front side also has gotten shorter and won't line up all the way down with the back piece. For the moment we can ignore that though, and I just sew the sides together now. As soon as the sides are shut, I want to determine how far the hemline of the corset jacket will go by putting the jacket back on and folding the hem up to the length I like to have. I secure the length with a pin. Next, it's time to reintroduce the zipper. The zipper has now to be shortened. I align the zipper with the newly determined length of the jacket and adjust the zipper to this length by cutting the upper part of the zipper away so it fits accordingly. I melt the raw edges with a lighter to seal them and hand sew little blockades at both ends of the zipper so the zipper bolt is prevented from sliding off. After I have adjusted and prepared the zipper, I pin it back on to the original spot I seam ripped it off initially. I make sure the bust line is centered and at the same level on both sides, and then heading over to the sewing machine. To sew in the zipper, I change the sewing foot to a zipper foot that has half the width and therefore can sew closer to the zipper edge. With the zipper foot, I sew on both sides of the zipper. Moving on to the hemline, I adjust it back to the length of the front and shorten it so that the hemline lines up all the way around. Next, it's time to give the jacket the structure it needs to actually be called corset jackets, and that is boning. I want to only add boning to the front, right below the bustard, to have the line continuing down to the hemline. Therefore, I add bias tape to the back of the fabric and sew it on like this. After stitching the bias tape on, it's time to determine how long the boning should be. I cut it 1 centimeter shorter than the whole length of the fabric so I can still fold around the hem. Then it's time to push the boning into the tunnel on both sides and fold around the hem and stitch it on. The last, but in my opinion the most fun task, is sewing on the loop bands so I can tighten the corset on the sides. This is up to everyone's personal preference, where exactly and how far apart you want to place the loop bands. I chose this distance and stitched them on with a straight stitch. As a final task, I pull the straps through every second loop and alternating the sides. And there it is, my final corset Adidas jacket. For those that are wondering, I also made a jacket skirt. If anyone is interested, I would also considering making a tutorial for that one too. So let me know in the comments. That's it for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed my video. Please feel free to give me a follow, like and comment. And if you managed to sew the corset top for yourself, feel free to share your results with me on Instagram, TikTok or here on YouTube. I see you next time. Bye!